If Baylor football can get this one player going right, they're going to the college football playoff in 2025.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by TurboTax. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and The Cam Show on YouTube. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. On today's show, we are talking about the most crucial player on Baylor's roster who needs to get back in 2025 if the Bears have any hope of real glory this season. Plus, Marino Dubrovcic, it kind of took us off guard. Why is he leaving? And who could replace him? And I think Kelvin Sampson spoke for all of us after his team won on Saturday night. It's about time someone else stands up for the Big 12. The greatest quote of the weekend. It's all coming up on this episode of Locked On Baylor. Starting first with football. We are now a couple weeks into spring ball. We've got the whatever spring premiere showcase coming up in a few weeks. And obviously the talk has been about, the guys coming back, right? Sawyer Robertson for one, Bryson Washington for another, and some of the key pieces that they have coming back this year, Josh Cameron, Ashton Hawkins getting another year of eligibility and coming back to this team. And it's all based and predicated on the fact that these guys were good in 2024. They've got another year to grow in the system. They should be good, if not better, in 2025. What about someone who was not that great in 2024, who was very good in 23, and if he is better in 25 than he was in 24, Baylor's got a real chance to win this conference. I'm looking at the defensive side of the ball because that's where the question marks are on this team still. And I'm really looking at the defensive backfield, where there were plenty of question marks left unanswered, or I guess left to a bad answer at the end of the 2024 season. The guy I'm looking at is Caden Jenkins. Here's a guy who has the breakout freshman season in 2023, right? And we know the rumors. I don't know exactly what the dollar figures were or who the teams were. We have a bit of an idea, but there were major Power 4 teams coming up to Caden Jenkins after that 2023 year that was like, come on. You guys just went 3-9. You're too good to be playing on a 3-9 team. How about we give you some money and come here? And one of the big moves early in that offseason was Dave Aranda locking down Caden Jenkins. And he was a big-time playmaker in the defensive secondary. He won Defensive Back of the Week one week, that comeback against UCF when he had the fumble return, scoop and score for a touchdown. And it wasn't the same in 2024. That defensive backfield wasn't very good. They graduated the parts of it that were good. And because of it, they needed a new secondaries coach coming into this season. And so Paul Gonzales is lured away from TCU after like decades there and being one of Gary's right-hand men in a part of the field that Gary Patterson excelled in the defensive backfield. And I think it's not only for Caden Jenkins, but I think Baylor recognized that was the biggest Achilles heel that they had, more so than even the pass rush, was the way they defended the pass. And not having kind of vintage Caden Jenkins, I think plays a big part in that. And so Paul Gonzales was asked about this in practice last week by Zach Smith of the Waco Trib, saying, this is a really important guy. What have you seen from him, and how important is he to the defense?
So Caden's got a lot of tools, a lot of upside. Really like his savvy at the position. I think probably the biggest thing watching the film coming in was just the eye discipline. If we can get him to stay assignment discipline and play his 111, I think that's going to help. It'll put him in the right position to make the plays that he's capable of making. So far in the spring, he's done that. He's taken some strides there. He had a play today. I tried to isolate him, and it was good to see him go up and play the ball. I think in the past he's kind of been a little bit more worried about the receiver and kind of, let the referees kind of be a factor in those plays. And today I thought he did a good job of going up and playing the football. So there's been improvement there. So that's been good to see.
So what I take from that is here is, from all accounts, brilliant defensive backs coach in Paul Gonzales, really needing to get back down to basics with Caden Jenkins. And that can happen, especially at the college level of these guys who are studs. And obviously there needs to be a ton of discipline as a corner, right? Where these guys are studs and they're playmakers, and then other coaches scheme them. They figure out their weaknesses. And I think that's what you saw in 2024. And it led to a change on the coaching staff for Baylor. And they know that if they don't get this defensive backfield right, they're probably looking at another 8-4, 8-5, rather than a 10-2 or an 11-1, which I certainly think they're capable of. But looking at Caden Jenkins, there's a bad taste in our mouths from what we saw in the LSU game, in the bowl game. I mean, he was burnt a couple of times in that game, couple going for touchdowns, and you've seen the potential that he has. Like in 23, he had a couple picks. He was making plays on the ball, but that wasn't just it. He was second according to PFF, he had the second highest passing grade on the team in 2023. So he was really like a shutdown, don't come over here kind of cornerback. And in 24, when the defensive backfield wasn't that much better than it was on a 3-9 team, he became the sixth highest passing grade according to PFF on Baylor, not in the Big 12, not in the country, on his own team, sixth best. There ain't six corners, okay? So he was truly one of the worst on the team of guys that you were actually throwing against. That can't be. And by the way, personnel-wise, from like proven commodities, Calvin Simpson-Hunt might step in here and be a big-time player for Baylor, but in terms of proven commodities, your defensive backfield did not get better. Snacks Johnson was great last year. He's not coming back. He's not walking through that door. So there's even more on the plate of Caden Jenkins in 2025 than there was in 2024. And I don't mean to put down this next guy I'm going to talk about, but what you're really hoping for is that this Caden Jenkins Baylor career does not turn into Richard Reese's career at Baylor anyway, where he has a stud freshman season and you think this guy's our future, and it just kind of slowly whittles away, which is what happened with Richard Reese. I mean, in 2023, it wasn't like he got an injury and he all of a sudden dropped off. He just wasn't getting the ball as much. And no one really understood why. And we played the blame game, Jeff Grimes and this offense, this offensive line. And it turns out it was all of those things and more, including Richard Reese, because the offense was much better in 24. The offensive line was much better. It was a different play caller, and Richard Reese still didn't get the touches. So it's kind of that same cycle right now. Now you've got a new position coach in there. You've got a second-year defensive play caller in Dave Aranda. The teams are scheming against them just like they did Richard Reese. They are scheming against being able to go at Caden Jenkins. And now it's like, what do you got? This is the biggest question mark that Baylor needs to turn into an exclamation point, is Caden Jenkins and this defensive backfield. And I really mean it. They could well be a playoff team if that does get turned around. That was by far their biggest weakness last year. I think they have some more versatility in the pass rush. I think this offense is going to be even better. I think you've got a similar core of good linebackers who can get out in pass coverage. But if you can't defend down the field, you're going to get eaten alive, especially by the looks of this conference this year. So the most important returner on this team in terms of the question mark is probably Caden Jenkins. Like, you have a good idea that Bryson Washington and Sawyer Robertson are going to give you good seasons. But I think there's more of a question mark for Caden Jenkins. And if he turns this thing around, that entire defensive backfield could be turning this thing around. And that could mean an extra 2 to 3 wins for Baylor. And I'm really serious about that. And it starts with Caden Jenkins. It's not all Caden Jenkins, but it starts with Caden Jenkins. He's got to be better than he was in 2024. And hopefully with Paul Gonzales in the position room now, that is a step in the right direction. Let's hope. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, or tweet at us at Locked On Baylor if you're listening to us. Locked On Baylor rolls on. We've got to talk some basketball. Marino Dubravcic, what was up with that? We'll go over that next on Locked On Baylor. But first, a message from our friends over at TurboTax. Guys, time is running out here. It's running out. And taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back. And then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Well, now taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who could do your taxes as soon as today. Get on it. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible, file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. All so you can get the most money back, guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. It's really starting to thin out in that Baylor basketball locker room. Marino Dubrovcic, the latest to go into the portal. He did that on Friday. And I'm not going to lie, this one was a shock, right? This is the big center you got from Croatia in July, who kind of gets thrust into a position late on in the regular season and into the postseason that the lights are probably a bit too bright for him, right? But we know how well Scott works with big guys, especially international big guys, right? All their great big men, for the most part, have been international players. Guys who have maybe played 1 year in American high school basketball before coming to Baylor. And the other common theme about all of them, except for Yves Misi, is it took some time. It took a bit, right? Joe Lual-Achuel or Jonathan Motley took a bit. Torian Prince came in as a center, which is wild. Of course, he did not play center, so I don't lump him into that group of international players. But it takes some time. And clearly, Marino Dubrovcic was a guy that they had to have some trust in early on in the process, but one that they were going to develop. And I think, I'm not saying this kid was going to be an all Big 12 or an All-American or anything, but someone you could work with and become a good starter for you, the same way they did with Flo Thamba. I don't think anyone was putting in a ton of votes for Flo Thamba to be an all Big 12 guy, an All-American. But he was a big piece of that 2021 team and was also a piece in the 22 team that won the Big 12 in the regular season. So this one, Marino Dubrovcic, I was like, really? Like what are Marino Dubrovcic's options here? That's what stuck out to me. He might have plenty of contacts in college basketball or anything, but he was probably not planning on playing American college basketball this past year. There's a reason Baylor got him in July, okay? That's not a guy who was planning to play major Power 4 Division I basketball in 24-25. And so now after 1 year, which he is a freshman, he's got full eligibility after 3 years of eligibility left after this year. Why give up on that this early? I know there's all kinds of, facets to the transfer portal. It's not just one blanket like money or, prestige or whatever. There's all kinds of different things that go into the decision to enter the transfer portal. But I felt like the old man on Facebook. I really did when I saw this news, because I was like, really? Like, how much did you expect to develop after 1 year? Can you have a little bit of patience? Can anybody have a little bit of patience here? And it happened to Miro Little, too. He's in the portal again. Left Baylor last year, leaving Utah now. I don't know if he's committed somewhere. He might have. I'm not really on the Miro Little train. I just saw that he left Utah as well. And I'm like, what do you guys, what do you expect? Did Marino Dubrovcic come in here expecting to be a one and done and was wondering why he wasn't playing? Do you think you just go to another Division I program and are instantly a starter? Like, you're a project. That's not a bad word. You're just a project, man. It just, not everyone comes in and is Cooper Flagg. Not everyone comes in and is VJ Edgecombe. And by doing this song and dance every year, you're not going to stick anywhere. It's like the kid AJ Storr from Kansas. He played 4 different high schools in 4 years and is now on his 3rd college team in 3 years. Like, how do you learn anything, really? You're playing in a new system every year for new coaches with new teammates. Like, the grass is not always greener. So that's, I don't know, maybe Marino Dubrovcic finds a great spot. But I'm like, what did you expect year one that you're already like, all right, I'm out of here. Peace out. That was one that I found it hard to wrap my head around, like what you were expecting. Jalen Celestine, as a guy who's a grad student, who's looking for one more year, I understand that more. He could have been a starter here at Baylor for better or for worse for Baylor fans, if that's good news or bad news. But I understand, with 1 year left. Langston Love, same thing. 1 year left. You're trying to get every ounce you can get out of college basketball. Marino Dubrovcic, it's like, man, you're in a program. You're in like the program for development in college basketball. No one develops guys better than Scott Drew and his staff has done over the last 10 years, making nothings into somethings. And he's just gone after 1 year. He's like, I don't want to deal with this. Maybe he just doesn't want to deal with how bare the cupboard is and that you have to find all new teammates. But I'm sorry. That one was a real head scratcher to me. And I know there will be people in the comments saying, oh, we'll find someone else. And we will. They will. Right? It's not like Marino Dubrovcic is an irreplaceable guy. But that is, again, just a microcosm of today's college athletics and today's college basketball hitting Baylor in the face really hard. Of like, come on, man. Scott Drew's got to be thinking, I know the portal's different. I know NIL changes things. But can I get some guys at the end of my bench who are making crap money that I can develop into starters? And then if you want to go get some more money, go ahead. But like, what is the market for Marino Dubrovcic? I don't know, man. That one was weird. And weirdly enough, adding on to the weird, if you look at the portal in college basketball, there's like 4 maybe uncommitted big guys in the top 50 big board. The only uncommitted guys really are guards, and you've got to get outside the top 30 to find a power forward or, God forbid, a center. There's just not many. And I was hoping Flory Badunga, maybe. Another guy I had circled genuinely with some real interest was this kid, Corey Chest from LSU. Power forward and meaty, man. 6'8", 220, big kid. 3 years of eligibility left. Averaged 6 points and 6.5 rebounds on 60% shooting for LSU. Didn't play a lot. He played 20 minutes a game as a freshman for a bad LSU team. It's not like he was the go-to guy, but was a 4-star kid out of high school, played at Link Academy for Bill Armstrong. And I was last week, I'm thinking, bang, he's going to come here and play for his old coach. Well, now Bill Armstrong isn't here either, because it's bad enough that all the players have left, but Bill Armstrong, the assistant coach, is now the head coach at McNeese. And just use this as a stepping stone. Baylor's worst season in 6 years. He gets a head coaching job out of it. Like, you can't win. So Corey Chest might be someone who would still be on the radar. And certainly Baylor's a better place overall than McNeese. But McNeese has put together a decent program the last couple of years under Will Wade. And certainly Bill Armstrong can go and find those kinds of diamonds in the rough, or those guys who he did coach and play against in the real national high school circuit that aren't getting the playing time or the role that they think they deserve. That's kind of the beauty of that kind of coach for the transfer portal. Doesn't help Baylor necessarily. Another one to look at, they've listed like 5 or 6 schools for this guy and then more, but they don't say who the then more teams are. So I don't know if Baylor's reached out, but KJ Lewis from Arizona, he's a guard, but can kind of play a little bit of a swing. So this is obviously not a like for like from Marino Dubrovcic. I do want to make that clear. He's a guard, but he's 6'4" and he's long and he's thick. So he could play more of a Jalen Celestine, who's a 6'7" guy, or a hybrid of him and Langston Love, who can guard a couple of different positions and play pretty physical. He averaged 11 points a game for Arizona. He's only a sophomore going into his junior year. Texas kid, played at, I think, Duncanville. So maybe something to look at there. The other guy, the top-rated, I believe, power forward who is not committed is, and I went for this guy because he's got the international ties as well, Alvaro Falgueras I believe is how you say that. 6'9", 215. He's coming from Spain, Malaga, Spain. He played at Robert Morris this year. And, again, one of those who kind of is beefy as 6'9". I don't want to compare him to Norchad O'Meara or anything, but one of those guys who can maybe play a little bit above his size because he's played kind of center most of his life, it seems, from his background in Spain. Sophomore again, so we got plenty of eligibility left, and he averaged a double basically, 14 and 9 for Robert Morris, the Colonials, baby, John Calipari's alma mater, and shot 55% from the floor. So that's a guy I would love to see in terms of big man eligibility and can win in the paint and can shoot the rock too. Shot 41% from three this past year on 3 attempts a game. So it's kind of, you get kind of some of the things that Michael Rataj does not have in Alvaro Figueras. But we're going to look more in depth this week. We're going to have Jackson Posey on this week and look more in depth in the portal. This Locked On Baylor rolls on because Kelvin Sampson had the quote of the weekend, and he's just saying what we're all thinking. Let's talk about that next on Locked On Baylor. But first, I have a question for you. I think you know what's coming. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. It isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth, okay? Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever with Monarch Money. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDON, COLLEGE, for half off your first year with Monarch Money. So the Houston Cougars are representing the Big 12, not just in the Final Four, but in the national championship game tonight. And I'm willing to say probably going to win the national championship after that stunning comeback against Duke. I mean, one of the all-time Final Four games. What was that? Like, they were dead in the water when Tugler hits the ball. He's defending it out of bounds. I think they're already down 6. I'm like, this game is over. And that Big 12 fight, it never dies, man. Good for them. Like that was an unbelievable effort. And it got even better in the postgame. Kelvin Sampson, a class act, but not afraid to speak his mind. And he had the quote of the tournament in the postgame interview. He says this, quote, "I hear what people say. Duke this, Duke that. Duke's great. John Shire's awesome. But don't sleep on Houston. Don't sleep on Houston. We weren't 34-4 playing in the Toy Poodle League." What is the Toy Poodle League? Who even says that? He goes, "We were 19-1 in the Big 12. Playing in the Big 12 helped us. Shout out to my Big 12 brethren." Shout out to you, Kelvin Sampson. I don't root for you guys just because you're in the Big 12, but I'm happy to see a Big 12 team there again, with a chance to cap off a national championship for the third different team in this conference in 5 years. And we know there would have been a 4th and 6, not a different team, but Kansas or Baylor would have won it in 2020, and each of them won in the next 2 years. But this conference is still the best in America. And Kelvin Sampson's going to let you know on the court when you think the game's done, and then he's going to really let you know afterwards, the Toy Poodle League. I don't even know what that means, but I can infer it means your league sucks, ACC. You know why? Because it does. That doesn't mean Duke's not a great team. They rolled past everybody, but that league stunk. And it's embarrassing that Baylor lost to an ACC team in the tournament last year. But shout out to Kelvin Sampson, because not only is he propping up the University of Houston, he's taken that basketball program to heights it hasn't seen in 40 years and has had a huge hand in elevating that school not just being a commuter school, Coug High at UH. Kelvin Sampson has a huge hand in turning that around and being a legit Big 12 R1 school through athletics. And the other guy who was a big hand in that, the guy who hired Kelvin Sampson. It's all coming up Baylor. Baylor AD Mac Rhodes had a huge role in that as well. But in a year where all the national media could talk about was the SEC and Duke. SEC, Cooper Flag. That was it. In a year where we heard that the whole time. While meanwhile, the Big 12 has had 1 seed caliber teams the whole way through. Whether it's Houston, it was Iowa State for a lot of the season. They fell off. Tech could have. They were playing 1 seed caliber for a lot of the season. Arizona was playing 1 seed caliber for part of the season. Kansas played in the league. But you had legit top tier teams that could make the Final Four. Tech was an eyelash away from it. And Houston's here. It sounded like that was part of the message. Like Kelvin Sampson going Herb Brooks, I'm sick and tired of hearing about what a great team Duke has. Screw them. Like, that's clearly part of the messaging. Maybe not like, hey, let's do this one for the Big 12 guys, but let's show them how we play basketball. Let's shut them up. Let's show the toy poodle league how we do this thing. Shout out to you, Kelvin Sampson. We're all behind you now, if we weren't already. Like, look, I'm not losing sleep tonight or Monday night. I'm not losing sleep if Houston does not win the national championship. It's good for Baylor to have a 1-up. But the fact that he stood up and said, you know what? Our conference, not just our conference is legit, our conference is better than yours. Our conference is better than the crap that we've been getting all season. I like that. And I think he probably takes personal offense to it because, like I said on the show last week, this talk was not like everyone knew the Big 12 was the very best in America before Houston got in here. And then Houston got in here and ran it for 2 years. An AAC team came in and ran it and have earned it. And now America's like, well, no, it's Big 12. That's yesterday's news. They're here, man. And if they knock out the SEC to win this whole damn thing, that would be really poetic. Really poetic. And by the way, even if they don't, one last note before we get you out of here. Even if they don't, this is from Jeff Fuller on Twitter. Even with the Houston loss, the Big 12 will have the highest tourney winning percentage this year at about 2/3, 66.7%. SEC would be second, 5 points behind them. And if Houston wins, they'll win 71.4%, the Big 12. And the SEC will be third. That's where we measure. That's where we measure teams. That's how we have to measure conferences. Who's doing it in March? No one else is about to do 3 in 5 years, 3 different teams. You can't touch that. It's been a long time since the conference has done that. I'll give you the last time. It was between 2001 and 2005 in the ACC. I think that's got to be right? Duke, Maryland, and then 2005 it was Carolina. Anyway, shout out to Kelvin Sampson because shout out to the Big 12. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Should you be rooting for Houston in the national championship game because of that Big 12 logo? And if not, why not? I'm interested to hear both sides. Again, I'm not losing sleep over if they lose or not, win or not, but I love that Kelvin Sampson did this. So let me know in the comments below. Tweet at us at Locked On Baylor if you're listening to us wherever you get your podcast, because this is the #1 source for Baylor sports news every weekday. We are here on YouTube and then wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for making it your first listen today and every day. We'll be back tomorrow because we're going to have a pretty big ruling tomorrow with possible revenue sharing coming to major collegiate athletics. That's going to be here on your Tuesday edition of your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.